Co-organizer of Social Media Breakfast, Minneapolis, St. Paul. I am super excited to be here today with all of you, and I am extra excited because Mr. Mykl Roventine, our director, our favorite guy, my favorite guy, but I'm a little bit biased, he has been part of Social Media Breakfast Minneapolis, St. Paul since SMB number 3.
All right.
So, 97 breakfasts, and 9 years later, I cannot wait to give him this microphone. Or his
We're actually going to keep the microphone. But thank you. So, as Jen mentioned, I'm Mykl Roventine. In addition to SMB, Jen and I both run the Minnesota Mykl Conference. We are behind Get Social events you may have seen popping up at different places on your ticket receipt and there. So if you are interested in the type of events we produce here, you can follow us for more information on the cool stuff that we do. I have a slide for that. First, though, I am thrilled to welcome you to the 100th Social Media Breakfast Minneapolis, St. Paul. Let's give ourselves no other chapter in the country, no other chapter in the world, there's Canada. So no other chapter in the world has hit 100 yet. So this is a milestone, and it is really just completely due to the community that we have here. So we have a few things to go through. First of all, though, we would like to thank the sponsors that made this event possible today. Full Stack St. Paul, City of St. Paul, Dunkin' Donuts, Coco, Make It MSP, and Union Depot. Please give them a warm round of applause. We'd also like to thank our annual and in-kind sponsors as well. They are the people who are keeping ticket prices down and helping us do this for the rest of the year. So St. Kate's NBA, and then our in-kind sponsors, Stanley's Northeast Barroom, they're our bacon sponsor, Verizon Wireless, 514 Studios, Skelly, oh my gosh, Skelly Video Production. It's really small. Oh, there it is, it's bigger. Sterling Cross Communication, and Make It MSP. Please give them a warm round of applause. I would like to bring up Steve Sieberfarb from Dunkin' Donuts to welcome us and tell us a little bit more about Dunkin' Donuts, who we are so grateful for providing coffee and donuts. Steve.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you for inviting us here this morning. First of all, congratulations, 100. That's a lot of them. I think it's fair to say that social media events, Social Media Breakfast, runs on Dunkin'. I don't think it is quite as smooth sounding as America runs on Dunkin'. There are only a few right now in Minnesota, but we're going to have more, and hopefully before long we'll be a would say that Minnesota runs on Dunkin'. I'm here with my business partner and very good friend, Teddy Nafmias, right there in the corner, who was up with me. Actually, he was at the store earlier than I was to put together the donuts and the coffee. You've gone through about 10 gallons of our great coffee and almost 15 dozen donuts. There are a few left. So we're happy to see that our product has made you happy. And I will tell you, I can speak for Teddy on this, that we love our job. We're the franchisees. We love it because when people come into the store, they're happy. When the kids come in, they're jumping for joy to see the donut case. And Teddy and I are probably the worst business folks because we give them all free munchkins. All the kids that come in, we give them free munchkins. I'm not sure their parents are too happy because we get them sugared up in the store, but that's part of our job. So our job is to make sure you leave happy. To leave happy with some great tasting products, our baked goods. And what really people don't know is that probably our top seller is the beverage, our coffee. Our coffee is very, very popular around the country. People love it. And we're happy to make it available in a hot way that you can get by driving through the store in our Dunkin' stores. We have one in New Hope. We have a store in New Hope and Andover. There's one that's not our franchise group, but our good friends in Roseville. There's one at the airport. And you will see more Dunkins rolling out. Maybe a couple will have Baskin Robbins too, some ice cream, in the very near future. So we're very happy, pleased to sponsor this breakfast and make our product available and work with you, Mykl, and your team, and hope you have a wonderful panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I'd also like to bring up Dawn Westerman, there she is, who is going to formally welcome us to this beautiful room here in Union Depot.
Thanks, Mykl. Happy Friday, everybody. Everyone's excited about the first snow, right? Mark Sung, he's a guy with the City of St. Paul Economic and Development Office, and he contacted me about this meeting, and he said, there's the social media breakfast group, and they have meetings all the time, although usually they're in Minneapolis, and I thought it would be neat if we would do this over in St. Paul. What do you think? And I was like, well, yeah, that'd be great. So I'm really glad that you came across the river, if that was the case. Can I ask how many of you, by raise of hand or coffee cup or donut, are on the west side of the river, not over here? All right, I would have to. Thanks for coming. How many of you have been to Union Depot before? A lot of people. And before this meeting, did you know that we had floors like this with private meeting rooms? Wow, we have our work cut out for us. So, anyway, today we have one of our neighbor company, TPT Public Television, is having a meeting right there in our Riverview conference room. The Veterans Gallery is open, so you could go and check that out if you like. The waiting room behind us, actually I'll come back to that. We have some tenants in the building. One of our tenants is Red Team Security, and they've been holding a security training program all week in our Gateway conference room. Behind us, though, the waiting room, which we can seat like 1,200 people and rounds and still have a program. Gillette is celebrating something, and I want to give away. Take it out. We have bees. We have bees on our roof, and this is beeline honey made from harvested from the bees. And does anyone know? Thank you. Does anyone know what Gillette is celebrating today?
The 100th meeting of.
Do you mind if I? She raised her hand. I'll give her first.
Well, no, you can do it. I think you know more than I do.
Saying they're celebrating that we had 100 social media breakfasts.
How about we get the other answer?
I think it's their 100th birthday.
We'll do it. 120 years since they admitted their first patient on this day. So I think that's pretty cool to celebrate too.
So who gets the 100?
So let's get it. The birth is we're close. We're close enough.
Yeah.
So anyway, the other thing you might come to Union Depot for, we have public events coming up on the holidays. We will have Elf shown for free out here in the waiting room. We have the European Christmas market outside on the East Plaza. We do bake sale, and then other times during the year we have Doggy Depot, train days, which is appropriate because we're a train station. We host a lot of art fairs and things like that. So please come back again and see us sometime. I'll leave my cards here. We've also got some brochures outside. If you want to rent space or just come and visit to do anything, and if you want a tour, just give me a call. I'll be happy to do so.
Thank you, Dawn. Maybe for 200, we'll be down in the waiting room. The other meeting rooms up here are really gorgeous. strategist too, if you're looking for affordable space. So we are very appreciative to be here, and it is giving us some room to breathe, and a little bit more room than we're used to, so we can celebrate. So a little housekeeping, and then we're going to take a brief look back, and then we're going to have our panel. Hashtag today is SMBMSP 100. We're running out of space on our tag, which is convenient, because this is the last numbered breakfast. So we've been lugging around these numbers every breakfast for 100 breakfasts. So now this is our chance to break free. So it will just be hashtag SMBMSP from now on.
After today.
After today. You might have seen the tip on our step and repeat there. Wi-Fi information has been running for a little while. If anybody needs it, I'll leave it up there for another second. It's the UDV network. I'll leave it up. I see a couple people frantically writing stuff down. I'm going to give you another 10 seconds, and then that's it. And then you got to use your data.
Or hop on Twitter, I bet we tweeted it.
Oh, there you go. Yep, our community manager tweeted the Wi-Fi, right? I'm looking back, making eye contact, and she's making eye contact back.
I think it's been 10 seconds.
I'm going to say yes. Okay, we are streaming live today. Oh, that is not the address. Don't pay attention to that address. Normally, we would be streaming live on that. But while our website is being redone, Gabe, Skelly Communications, Video Productions, has graciously hosted our stream, which I know has been broadcast. So check Twitter for that. And again, this has been running as well. When a Get Social VIP pack, you just have to tweet us, or you just have to sign up for email updates on our website, and you get a season pass to SMB, which is one ticket for every breakfast for an entire year, and a ticket to next year's Minnesota Blogger Conference. It is pretty darn sweet, so you should check that out. The other giveaway that's been running is the $25 gift card that is good at Stanley's, the How, and Pub 819. You just tweet us why you love Stanley's Bacon. I can see that my phone is blowing up here with Stanley's Bacon tweets. Use our hashtag. We will announce that at the end of the breakfast. And then today, so I feel like Oprah now all of a sudden. I was going to do something under your seats, but you know. So thanks to our friends at Coco, everyone here today will get a complimentary day of co-working at any Coco location in the Twin Cities or Chicago. So volunteers will be passing out these very valuable cards as you leave, one per person. Yes. So let's give Coco another round of applause too, because that's pretty great. We definitely wanted to, I'm eating the mic, Ron says. It's disconcerting having the sound guy this close to me all of a sudden. Okay, so a couple exciting things, and I'll tease this now. We have 3 dates to announce, our next 3 breakfasts. Registration will open on Monday for all 3 of them. So, November 27th, Conversation with RT Ryback. We're all at 514 Studios for these 3 events. So I'm going to interview RT, and it's going to be fantastic, and you should be there. December 22nd, Social Media Case Studies. These are always exciting and well-attended events, so get your tickets early for this. This one is going to be featuring case studies by Space 150, Rocket 55, and Modern Foundation. And finally, January 26th, we're already into 2018, people. And this title is being worked on. Convincing stakeholders to invest in more social media resources. But you get the gist, right? We'll sex it up a little bit. And that's featuring Tony Saucier. So, check those out, and those will be available Monday. So, show of hands. Who's here for the first time? Excellent.
You picked a good one.
Who is here from other SMB chapters? Okay, excellent. Who has been here, or who was here at SMB number 1? Okay, it's a good sampling. Who has been to more than 1 social media breakfast? Excellent. Keep your hands up. Keep your hands up. Who has been to more than 5 social media breakfasts? More than 10. You cannot remember, there have been so many. Words, yeah, there you go, word and K. All right, so thank you for doing that. That's very exciting, and this is part of the reason we are here for 100, and this is why we are going to take a brief look back. This is social media breakfast number 1. Keys Cafe, 18 people, casual conversation about social media. It's obviously very different now as we look across this room. So, he couldn't be here, but our founder, Rick Mon, he had some work obligations, spoke about why he decided to start Social Media Breakfast, when he did, and what was going on. And this is a video that was recorded at SMB number 50. Oh, and hold on. I gotta kill my music. There we go. Let me bring this up. I forgot I had sound here. This is what Rick's doing.
That's
okay.
Rick.
Exactly. Okay, there we go.
Social Media Breakfast was kind of a physical manifestation of meeting so many people online. By trade, I'm an IT guy. I'm one of those server guys back in the back room. We don't talk too much. We're introverts. And I felt like I was missing something. And so in 2006, 2007, I was blogging quite a bit and meeting people online. Discovered Twitter early on and Facebook a little later in 2007. And one of the people I met was Brian Person and a number of bloggers out in Boston at the time. And I saw Brian Person do this one get together. He had gathered all those bloggers and social media folks in Boston together for a breakfast one morning in August of 2007. I thought, God, that's such a great thing. It's a wonderful thing to take and bring people together that you just met. And you've met online, you've known them for months. Start to get that personality, but you still haven't, you look at their little avatar, and that's not them necessarily. It was a chance to really get to know who those people were. And I thought that was really powerful and important. And I was thinking, gosh, that'd be great to have that done here. And a month later or so, I pinged Brian over in Boston. I said, this is really neat. If you know anybody in Minneapolis, you should have them orchestrate with them to get a social media chapter started. I said, Rick, that's a great idea. When are you going to do it? And I'm like, yeah. It was really interesting to go out and start talking about, let's bring these people together. Invited folks, and I started thinking, well, where are we going to do this? And luckily found space at Keys Cafe in Fauché Tower. It was a lot of fun. And we got about 18 people together. But it was wonderful to meet these people online, in person that we'd met online. And it was just such a natural conversation. I think we've all experienced that after, you talk to somebody for months and months, and all of a sudden you meet them in person, and you just pick right up where you left off. And so once we got done with that first one, the inevitable question was, when's the next one? And I wasn't ready for that, but we got started on it. Every month we started to do something new. And today, of course, we've done so much of these meetings. I always think we're going to run out of topics, and yet, lo and behold, the community that we have is really great. They keep bringing people together and come up with ideas. It was really fun and exciting from my perspective to just see how the desire to meet people and really get to know who I'm dealing with and who we're talking to and what strengths we all have and bring us together as a group. Not through some highly organized, highly structured, mechanism, but through this grassroots movement. So that's kind of my philosophy on social media breakfast and kind of where it came from.
So that's Rick's story about how things got started, and he mentioned Brian Person, who started the original Social Media Breakfast in Boston. Brian sent us a video this morning. I have not even seen it yet. It literally came right as we were starting today. So here's Brian Person.
Good morning, Twin Cities. Congratulations on your 100th Social Media Breakfast. That is just amazing. 10 years, 100 breakfasts, keeping up this event. That is so encouraging to see. My name is Brian Person. I'm the founder of the original Social Media Breakfast series in Boston back in 2007. You guys got it kicked off in early 2008. I remember Rick Mon, the founder there, Skyping me in for that morning. I think the group was about 10 people. You've obviously grown to much, much larger over the years. It's been a pleasure to attend a few of your SMBs over the last decade. Great to see what Mykl and Jen have done over the last several years in keeping it going and having the event in a variety of places with an interesting lineup of speakers. And you guys are staying on top of the trends. You've just built something and sustained it in a really, really nice way. So I'll be watching the tweets from Austin, where I now live. And again, congratulations. And can I say, look forward to the next 100 as well. Have a great breakfast and enjoy the bacon this morning. Bye, guys.
Excellent. That was great. Thank you, Brian. So I have some quick stats to go through, and then we will. I want to honor the things that we've done, and it's also kind of my tradition. I did it in 50 and 75, where we just kind of track stuff. So our total attendance since 2008 has been 14,075 people. Very, very exciting. This is more than the population of Brainerd, so I'm very, very proud of that. Our highest attendance record still stands from 2009 from SMB 16 at 375, although we got very close, just about 30 shy of that for number 75. Oh, that's not me, that's like something in the wall, right? Okay, good. Number 75 came pretty close at Space 150, but that still stands as our record. We will beat that one day. We've had 285 speakers, more or less, over the years. I have tried to factor in multiple speakers, and that's actually a little on the low end. So, and none of these speakers are paid. I don't know if people know that. So they are volunteering their time and their educational stuff that they're sharing. I've lost everything I was going to say. They are volunteering to share their expertise with you, and that's a pretty amazing thing. 285 times. We have consumed 39,000 ounces of coffee. It's the equivalent of 304 gallons or 4 bathtubs full. Not just this year, but yes, over the course of that entire time. This is since 2008. We have consumed 9,951 slices of bacon, and if you lay them end to end, it is nearly a mile of bacon. That's amazing. I mean, I really hoped we could make the mile by 100, but we're close enough, so I'll do that. And then just as these are going to rotate, we have been in such a variety of venues. We were at the Florida Target Center, where the Timberwolves train. We were in breweries, corporate headquarters, all kinds of meeting rooms. We were in a church once. We've been to most of the campuses across the Twin Cities. We were at TPT studio a couple times. We were at Clear Channel radio station. We did a breakfast in Studio C. We've been in tents outside. We've been at the State Fair. We've had Petey the Peacup sit on a panel about healthcare and social media. Speaking of media, we've had coverage throughout the years. There's Rick on Fox 9, there's Jen on CCO. Through it all, we've had this amazing community behind us of dedicated speakers, of committed volunteers who make this space full. And that's really what we do it for. It's the people and the connections, all those numbers I read to you. The important number is the one that I can't quantify. The countless connections and opportunities that people have made throughout the years. It breaks me up a little bit. I'm sorry. So it is about the people. This is why we do it. This is why we're going to continue doing it. And I'd like to thank you all for being a part of that. So a toast. I have my cups over there. Cheers. Thank you. So, briefly, I'll bring this down. Ron's looking at me. So looking forward, we have a couple things we want to tease. As I mentioned, you can now register 3 events at a time. We will start announcing them as one goes. We'll announce the next one, so you can register all at once for the next 3 events. We have a new website in development that will launch by the end of the year. That will be easier to use. It will have the latest information, and it will have a deep media archive of photos, videos, any kind of recaps or tweet streams and whatever of every single event. We have a new way for group and corporate tickets to save money and book easier, basically. Okay, not saying that well. We have more networking opportunities and events, both online and off planned, and more. So stay tuned. We have some exciting things on the horizon. But the thing I'm actually most excited about today is this amazing panel. So I am going to walk across and grab my notes, and I'm going to start bringing our panel up. We decided, because these are all local experts, it's really hard to figure out who should sit where, what the pecking order should be. So we settled on who joined Twitter first. So the distinction goes to Mr. Greg Swan first, who's going to sit right here. Yes. So come on up. Greg joined Twitter the 31st of January, 2007. So Greg is Director of Social and PR Strategy at Fallon. He's a social innovator. He has made both PR Week and Minneapolis-St. Paul Business Journal's 40 under 40 lists. He's an avid trend spotter. He's spotting one right now. And conference speaker, as well as a longtime SMB supporter. I lost count at about 4 of the number of times you've been on this stage. But nobody knows who's coming or what's coming next or where we should be paying attention better than this man. So, and a man who incidentally once tweeted as a groundhog for many, many years. True story, may come up today. So, now that that's all done, let's give him another round of applause. Next, joining Twitter March 10th, 2007 is Lee Odden. Sporting a fantastic black social media t-shirt. CEO and co-founder of TopRank, known as a pioneer and passionate advocate of integrated marketing and public relations around the globe. He's an author. He travels the world speaking. He's written thousands, literally, of blog posts and articles and over 1.5 million words on the award-winning online marketing blog alone. He's been an SMBMSP supporter from the very beginning. He gifted us our domain name back in the day, and he has graced our stage many times. I'm pleased to welcome him back. Please give a warm welcome to Leo.
Speaking of gifting, in the spirit of bacon,
Is your mic on?
oh, yeah. In the spirit of gifting, I have another gift for you, for Mykl, to thank you for all that you've done. That, of course, is a bacon scarf. I wish I had two. Sorry.
I feel like I've been anointed. Our investments. All right, so thank you. Thank you very much, Lee. So finally, joining Twitter on October 9th, 2008. Yeah, that's okay. Jennifer Kane. Jennifer is the Kane and Kane Consulting strategist, author, educator, speaker. She describes herself as more of a narwhal than a unicorn. You will see why. But we say she's completely one of a kind. She has 2 decades of experience working in marketing and communications for B2B and B2C companies and a long history of always responding to our calls for speakers who aren't afraid to push the envelope and occasionally swear on stage. Jennifer Kane, everybody. Oh, and I have pictures of each one. Look at that.
There we are.
And there we go. Okay, there is water over here, panel, if you would like, in the order that you are sitting. That's mine. I'm going to take this off just because it's a little warm.
It is warm.
But thank you. All right, so when I had the opportunity, the great opportunity to figure out how we could celebrate to this event. We started looking back, we started looking at 2008 when we started, and I thought, I want to get a hold of my favorite people in town so they can talk about how social has changed since then, where it's going, what kind of happened in between. So we talked about this panel a little bit on the phone about what you were doing and what you were thinking in 2008 in terms of social, and it's really interesting to me. Jen, why don't you start? You had mentioned that your use of social right around 2008-ish was when you were organizing the MEMA Summit.
Yes. So when I actually first joined Twitter as me in 2008,
but I joined earlier as I set up the account for the MEMA Summit. I was producing the MEMA Summit during that period of time. And so I tweeted as the MEMA Summit, well, before that summit. So it was very fun because I got to explore Twitter without having to be my name on it. And I also got to show up at events and have people be like, did you read the tweets from MEMA Summit? And I was like, no. What did they say? And it was really exciting that I could kind of get real-time feedback on how the Twitter feed was going from people that I was seeing at events. So that was kind of my first introduction to that, and I kind of really became jazzed about it and then quickly joined as myself as well. And so that was kind of where, at that beginning of time, I was really exploring social media from an events perspective and how you could use social media for events. And shortly thereafter, I went to South by Southwest Interactive. And I was really struck sitting in the room that there were things that we had done at the MEMA Summit that South by Southwest wasn't even doing. And I felt pretty cool. I thought, this is kind of like the Wild West, and there are no rules, and we're already making up new rules that are really cool rules that other people maybe could be borrowing from. For instance, at that time, it was weird, they didn't say what any of the Twitter handles of any of the speakers were. And that was just something that we had done that I went, we should do that. And everybody went, sure, well, can't hurt, put it in the program, and if nobody tweets, that's okay. So there were things like that that seem really simple now, but at the time were kind of risky moves to make. And so kind of my beginning into social media was really looking at how you could use social media for events and kind of push the envelope for events. And I remember I was producing an event, and I had the facilities manager came up to me and I said, we're getting a lot of feedback that the ballroom that they're in is really cold, and so I'm gonna need you to turn up the temperature. And the facilities woman said, you always get a squeaky wheel in every room and whatever. And I said, no, and I turned around my tweet deck, and there were tweets like, man, it's cold, I'm freezing my ass off. This is the coldest place I've been in. And I showed her, I was like, this is real-time feedback from people in the room that it's cold, so I'm gonna need you to go turn up the heat. And the woman went and turned up the heat, and she spent the rest of the conference sitting by my side saying, how do you do this? How is this happening? And she brought the janitors over, and everybody was sitting there like, what they're thinking in the room. And I was like, yeah, this is kind of magic from an events perspective, and kind of like one of my baller moves at the time was running a conference, and somebody tweeted like their pen just died, and I just walked into the ballroom and put a pen down and walked out. And I was like, this is the ultimate in customer service. Like, you don't even know that somebody's listening to you bitch about your pen. Not only am I listening to it, it's my job to come in and give you a new pen because I want you to have the best time possible. And I think that was exciting to realize you could do that much for people and to find ways to make that happen. So that was kind of my beginning experience with social.
That's fantastic. Now Lee, you were coming at it from a different angle. You've been blogging 5 years or so, and you were focused on social bookmarking.
Yeah, I mean, at the time in 2008, blogging was a lot more social than it is today because people actually commented on blogs. You get these long 20, 30, 40, 50 streams of dialogue, and it was really interesting. You could post something in reaction to what another blog said, and it was this really neat dynamic. And so from a marketing perspective, I did recognize coming into this world as an SEO guy, one that appreciated links quite a bit. There were bookmarking services that if you saved a page, it would make a copy of your page, and then it would link back to the original. And this was a very interesting thing. It was the platforms were designed to be a social thing because you could have a network of friends that could see what you were saving on the internet. I saw it initially as purely as an SEO thing and was not very sensitive or thoughtful about the social aspect of it. But then we signed Radian 6 as a client, right, shortly after they launched. And of course, that fast-tracked me into the social monitoring world because in order to market a social media monitoring platform, you need to know how it works. And that really expanded, how we viewed social media. And in 2008, I was checking out what was I writing about. We were publishing really popular, what became popular social media strategy types of content, talking about how. Bless you, this kind of engagement can come into the brand that you're creating, and the whole conversation and all that part of marketing that was evolving out of Clue Train and that sort of thing. On a personal note, it was kind of interesting with Twitter. I had started a tradition in my family. When my kids turned 10 years old, I would take them on a daddy trip, since if you don't know me, I love to travel. And so anywhere in the US, where do you want to go? And my oldest son, who turned 10, said he wanted to go to New York. And I didn't know, after having been to New York for conferences and events, where do you go with kids in New York? So I went to Twitter. And I literally crowdsourced our itinerary through Twitter and Facebook, asking people where should we go, and I got all these ideas and researched them. And then as Dominic, my son, and I were experiencing these things, we were sort of paying back to the people that had given us the ideas by documenting our journey. And that was a new experience for me. That online-offline dynamic really set the stage for a lot of what we do on the marketing side, I think, in terms of, you know, when you experience something personally, you internalize it, you feel it for real, and it's a lot more inspirational and motivating for you to understand how you could apply that thing in maybe the work world. And lots of things have happened since then. Social is a big part of what has enabled me to do all the fun things, and our team to do a lot of fun things that they get to do.
That's excellent. I love that. I love that story. Greg, you yet again coming at this from a different angle. You were blogging for the Army. I didn't realize you served.
Oh, I did not, so all respect to those who did. Yeah, so I moved to Minneapolis, actually downtown St. Paul, a block away, and walked through this building every day. It's a little surreal. In 2004, and started a music blog, and it got pretty big, and the reason is we were disrupting the traditional forms of messaging and gatekeeping. And Rolling Stone hadn't yet figured out that MySpace mattered, right? Do you guys remember MySpace? Because it was huge in 2008. And so I've been blogging for a few years, and we were working with brands to help them experiment with this new social conversation, this fact that you don't have to go through traditional gatekeepers to reach publics. It was truly revolutionary. And we looked back and we overestimated its impact at the time, but overall I think we really underestimated where we're at today. So in 2008, we had been working with the US Army on trying to break down some of those barriers for recruiting, specifically the recruiters and then the media about what it's actually like to join the Army. Because the truth is that these 17, 18-year-olds had friends who were in Afghanistan updating their MySpace pages. Social, right? So in 2008, we launched a blog for the Army called Army Strong Stories that grew to more than 2,000 soldiers blogging about what it's like to be in the Army. That content was unfiltered and unmoderated, which meant that soldiers could say whatever they wanted. They could say, this is the worst job I've ever had. Don't enlist. My best friend was just killed. They could also say, it's the best job I've ever had. And this is why I just re-enlisted. And it allowed truth, authenticity through social media between a soldier and a prospective soldier without those gatekeepers. And it's just, it was using social for what its true purpose is, which is community. I'll also add, when Social Media Breakfast started, a few other organizations like mine, etc., it was really important to me and the reason that my family and I are still here. So I don't know if you know, but Minnesotans are kind of passive-aggressive. It's really hard to make friends with you people. You already have friends. And you're going to be inside for 6 months after today. Social media allowed me and my wife to find other like-minded people. And this community is really important. It's critical. And we underestimate it. We're just like, oh, news feeds and Facebook. And it's like, no, like you're able to connect with another person emotionally, have an intellectual exchange of ideas, even if that is, do I say duck, duck, goose, or duck, duck, gray duck, right? So that's how I got here.
I have to say thanks to Greg, because if it wasn't for his work with the Army, I never would have been able to skydive as part of a speaking gig with the Army Golden Knights.
So we did, I know we'll talk about influencers.
And I got to tell a story on Army Strong Stories about my experience in the military, or with the skydiving. Is pretty incredible, so thank you for that.
Yeah, so even 10 years ago, we're seeking out influencers and thinking of how we can give them authentic experiences that harken back to the fact that you were enlisted, and then throw them out of planes.
Exactly. I'll take a second to talk about what I was doing in 2008. By the way, I joined Twitter on March 20th, 2008, so I'm about here.
Nice.
I was already on. That's something else.
Right.
Okay.
So anyway,
Right
that-
at the end.
that third social media breakfast that I went to for the first time, I found out by following somebody I didn't know on Twitter who was talking about it. I was using a tool at the time called Twitter Local. Anybody remember that? So I joined Twitter, and I immediately said, I need to follow a bunch of people to get the most out of this, and I wanted to follow people near me. So you entered your zip code in Twitter Local and said, these are the most loud people tweeting, people tweeting the most in your zip code. Here's 5-mile radius, 10-mile radius. And the first person I followed, where'd he go? Mykl. There you go. Started talking about, I don't think I had actually engaged him yet in conversation, but he started talking about this thing called social media breakfast, and it sounded like this secret club. I couldn't find anything else about it. So I finally asked him, what is this? What do I have to do to join? And he said, oh, you just show up here on this day. So I did. And the rest is history there. But that was amazing. That was something that was way outside of my comfort zone to do that, and it was the start of something fantastic. So, moving on. Greg, you had mentioned MySpace, and yes, it was the biggest social network, at least in the US in 2008. What happened that Facebook jumped ahead, and now Facebook is everything? It doesn't have to be everybody, but can you talk about some of the factors that influenced that shift?
Sure. So, you guys anyone remember Ning?
Oh yes.
Right? Yeah,
Our first SMB site was in Ning.
Yeah, so we used to build our own social networks, and that was a key part of building social out for brands. Is like, how are you going to build a community? Things like Clorox Moms, where Clorox is building an entire group just for moms. General Mills built one, and we did build MySpace pages for brands, and in the same way that bands were using them to rally fans and bring them, and have them come places and maybe sell things, brands were able to use MySpace for that as well. But it was also messy as hell. You guys remember, like, all it's all Back to the Future, because it's all back now. But like really bad animated GIFs and really bad customization and pieces of flair and just like bad internet on purpose is what MySpace became. And Facebook, there's this idea that there's always going to be a next thing and everything's going to die. And we almost kind of root for it because we've seen that happen in the last 10 or 15 years. And so, watching Friendster die and AOL die and then MySpace died. And so we're all waiting for Facebook to die. And it's just I just think it's the wrong mentality. It's actually a fantastic tool, these networks that allow us to build experiences and connections on top. I'm sure you have thoughts.
I think Facebook has been, optimizing for emotion, every way they can, and creating interaction opportunities that capitalize on that, whether it's the feed itself or offering services like the group function, where, by the way, any of you that have beards that are marketers could join Marketers with Beards on Facebook. Naked faces are welcome as well, so it's not limited just to the bearded.
Beardist.
The beardist, yeah. Anyway, I think that, through acquisitions and enhancements and things like that, I think, Facebook has been really smart about understanding what it is that makes people want to be social. Social content creation, social sharing and engagement, and really, like I said, optimizing for emotion, because that's the thing, really, at the end of the day, what motivates people to use the platform.
I guess I would agree. I think I think there's some great use of psychology and kind of how they built it, and it's clean and dead simple to use. And I have my father-in-law is not very technical. His name is Carl, and I call him my Crystal Carl, because if Carl's on it, it's not going away. He's a big fan of the Pinterest. He likes the Pinterest a bit. But, when people like my father-in-law are on Facebook, and it's very simple, and it says, how are you feeling? And he pushes a happy button. For him, this is very accessible, and he reaches all the people he needs to reach. and it's clean, and he has no sense of all the data that's being gathered. And I think it's a little, Facebook is a little insidious in that it just has this really clean, simple, approachable, kind of like a stalker, kind of like you meet it and you're like, you're awesome, and then like 10 years later you're like, our relationship's super dysfunctional. So it's one of those sorts of things where you get in it and you realize like how much you're dependent upon this tool, how much data you have invested. People have put their entire family albums on there. They're not going to walk away from that. So we reach a certain point of no return where people had put so much data and so much information and built such large networks, they're not going to try to export that to a different platform because people are inherently kind of lazy and comfortable with something that makes them feel comfortable. And Facebook's MO is to make you feel comfortable and to make you feel like Facebook isn't even there. It's just you and your friends. And people really love that because it feels like it's just them and their friends. And then people are really surprised when they find out that their information is being monitored, or that somebody that knows somebody actually saw that post of them, because they really feel like they're just talking to a small group of people and it's not open for the larger world to look at. And I think it's genius, but it's also a little scary too.
Absolutely. Lee, on this point, you and I were talking earlier about this concept of people following their tribes and finding a network where they think their tribe is, and then maybe stopping. Over this period, many of us in this room who lean towards the early adopter end of the scale joined everything just to kind of check it out. But the average person doesn't do that. Many of them find a place and they get comfortable and they kind of nestle in. That can have negative effects as well.
Yeah, I think, you think about 2008 to 2012, 13, and especially if you're in the marketing communications space, it was part of your job in a way to just go join every new thing to go figure it out. And after things started dying off immediately, like Plurk, remember Plurk? Or things like that, it's just kind of like, I know for me, I'm not joining every new thing anymore, maybe because of the momentum of Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram and YouTube. But there was a time when something new came out and you had 5,000 or 10 or 100 or whatever followers, you announced to your network that you're used to working with that you're now over here as well. Bing, immediate network over there, right? And I suppose for individuals now this is as attractive too, because the emotional satisfaction people get from interacting with friends and being perceived as popular and all that stuff, especially with younger folks.
Well, people were using that for hiring purposes.
Piloting purposes.
You're hiring purposes.
Oh, hiring.
Wasn't with Robert Scoble back in the day or something? Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
we're gonna go there.
let's not go there.
Yeah. No, but I remember reading a story about, they bumped up whatever his signing bonus was because he was guaranteeing 7,000 followers on a new network that he was shilling for them.
Sure, as a sign of, if you're in this space, I won't disagree with, there are people that there are opportunities that I've been able to take advantage of because I have 300,000, blah, 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 whatever, across, it's crazy, whatever.
Only 3,000.
Huh?
Only 300,000.
Anyway. And so the fact that there's that potential perceived audience, and these silly brands are out there still relying on potential impressions as a real thing, and it's totally mythical, as an indication of reach, right? And that's opened lots of doors. So yeah, I get it. People are signing up for new things to see how much they can get their network to grow, because that could give them some clout, so to speak.
Another one that bit the dust.
Gotta be funny.
Right after I got my coffee maker. Cloud's gone. Greg, we're going to go to you. I really liked the example that you shared with me about when we were at an SMB at Best Buy, when we were talking about it. And I think it illustrates a nice shift between how social networks are perceived then and now. Would you mind sharing that?
Yeah, so how many of you have ever worked at a place that blocked access to social media networks that work? How many of you still work at a place that blocks social media networks? Okay. I'm sorry. Legitimately sorry.
Are the people at the other places hiring? Because it seems like there's a
Yeah.
We're hiring. We're
Yeah.
hiring.
I hope they're not using Facebook to advertise those jobs. So we had a social media breakfast at Best Buy, and none of us could get on Twitter because we were using their Wi-Fi, and it was blocked. Right? Because it was a toy. It was an abuse of your time, and you were fucking around if you were on social network. She still has headphones on? My 8-year-old's at the bed. She does. So what's fascinating is that today, how many of you check Facebook at work? Yeah. How many of you have even thought about, like, I shouldn't check? Like, social has become part of the fabric of our lives. And it's just like, I will call my kid's school, I will book a work appointment, and I will check Facebook at work. And that's different. That doesn't mean people aren't still abusing it, but that's a management issue. That is not a access IT issue. That is a character issue.
Absolutely. Well, and it's a really nice illustration of a shift in this relatively small period of time. Carrie Delaria, hello. I meant to reach out to you to ask if I could use the photo of the little note that Jen gave you that you posted the other day. Well, I'm not asking now, but since I didn't, Jen gave Carrie a present for her birthday, and she wrote these little notes, and there's a note every day, and Carrie posts them, and we all get to enjoy them, and one of them was, you remember that there's these little affirmations, and it was just a couple days ago, it was remember that you were there for the birth of social media, and that's pretty darn cool. Okay, sure. Right, is that close?
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is really, this is a fundamental period of time when not only did the technology change, but our behavior changed at probably at an unprecedented level in history. Not just for marketing and not just for society, but just everything. So I think we're going to look back at this, and it's going to be pretty amazing. Do you want to talk about?
Well, I think that I don't know that I can adequately describe how cool early Twitter was. And it's kind of tragic what Twitter has become, and I know a lot of people who are early adopters feel really sad when they're there, because at a certain point, I had the most magical experiences happen on Twitter. Like, there'd be a person who wrote a book, and they'd be out to dinner with other famous people who wrote books, and I just tweet that group, and they'd start talking to me. I met very, very cool, influential people, because I just talked to them, and they would talk back to me, and it was like there was no doors. And it was kind of amazing, and I got close to a lot of very influential people very quickly, because I was there and they were there, and there wasn't so much noise, they could hear you. And people were really receptive to the coolness of being able to talk to anyone, because anyone wasn't millions of people, it was hundreds of thousands of people. And so the conversations that you had and the connections you had with people were just really, really special. And that time won't ever happen again on that platform, and I think for a while we were chasing it on all sorts of other platforms, but I think it was just really unique to that particular time frame. And I know we have a lot of like sad Twitter conversations with people who were on it at the beginning, because I do feel bad for people who are joining it now, because you're just not like, then you could talk to the equivalent of a Kardashian. I don't know why you'd want to, but you could. Because they're like, cool, weird person in the Midwest, I'm talking to you too. They were just like, this is cool, and we're on the interwebs, and we're friends. And it was just, the novelty was so exciting that it just blew down so many doors. And I think that's partially why we got kind of high from it at the beginning, because there was this ability to reach out and touch people that, like Greg was saying, that formerly there were all sorts of doors between you and that person. You could reach that person directly and say, I talk to famous people and be like, I have a book club, and will you Skype in and talk to us, like the author of the book? And they're like, sure. I would have had to go through their agent, who would have talked to their publicist, who would have talked, that would have been a long process, but I could just reach out and say, hey, I'm this person, and I think your book is cool, and come talk to me, and they'd say, okay. So I think the noisier it got, the harder it became for those sorts of connections to happen. But I think when you talk to people who were really social junkies in the beginning, it was those sorts of experiences that got us hooked and really got us excited about the potential for this medium that allowed the democratization of communication. It was really exciting.
Absolutely.
I was going to say that there's like a sugar high that you get of the social connections and access that Jen is talking about. And I think what I found was, especially with Twitter, the magic was happening with the offline to online connection. And Twitter, Twitter chats, tweet ups, right? Geek dinners evolved into, tweet ups or Twitter meetups.
Dinners.
Yeah. And it was that ability to connect with people in person that you might have only interacted with online for, months or even years sometimes, and then there's just no substitute for an in-person interaction to really solidify or spark a relationship, which could turn into all kinds of things. And that's one thing that I found is, because we do a lot of things with events. I mean, I found that to be a double reason, to be active on social and to bring those on and offline communities together to really amplify the effect of each. Because if it was just offline, it wouldn't be as much. It wouldn't be as magical and interesting, and it certainly wouldn't be as innovative in terms of the diversity of people you would meet. And if it was only online, there's limitations to that too. And I think it's the coming together of both that really is where a lot of amazing things are happening.
Oh, I just want to add one anecdote. One day I was tweeting, my kid had a math problem and my husband was traveling. I was like, I made this go out of my brain long ago. And I tweeted it. I was like, I don't understand my kid's math. And an anchor on CNN helped me figure out the answer. And it was and I actually wrote on my kid's homework, an anchor on CNN said that this is the correct answer. So don't even wish me lady. But that could happen. I mean, it could still happen today, but that kind of thing happened frequently back today.
So in 2008, it was rumored in the media we were going to have a huge snowstorm. This might sound familiar. And it was oh my God, we're going to die. It's going to snow in Minnesota. You better get gas. Here we're interviewing people, and they're going to salt the streets, and be sure to remember to tap your brakes, and fear monger. And I came into work, and my friend Doug Hamlin and I were just this is ridiculous. And it was let's see if we can make a trending topic out of this. And so we wrote, Snowmageddon is coming. And then we set up a live stream out the window of no snow. And we made T-shirts. And we were doing live stand-ups outside. And it became a national trending topic. And then the Weather Channel talked about it. And then Good Morning America talked about it. And then now the Weather Channel names every storm. And we started naming storms every as it would come as a response, a crowdsourced response to mainstream media fear-mongering about a thing that we all know is going to come. Yeah. And it was ability to what you both are talking about of we're starting to connect with people you don't even know as part of a part of a movement, right? So if you go to Wikipedia, right there, it's Snowmageddon coined in 2008, 2009 as a response to mainstream media's fear-mongering about winter storms. It's amazing. And so, some of us, now we do that as a job every day. How can we get lots of people to pay attention to a brand in social, to form a movement, to change an opinion, to influence an action? And at the time, we were just fucking around.
Lee, you mentioned event stuff. You do a lot of that now, event-related marketing. That doesn't seem, it makes perfect sense, the progression that got you there, but that probably wasn't something you would have thought you'd be doing.
No.
So I'd love to hear from all three of you. We could start with Lee. Sure. On something in this period, we can start to move forward, and something in this period that you've moved into an area now, and may even still be working in, that you didn't foresee, and what that is, why you got there?
You mean as far as speaking, like that's an example, no, or you mean something like that?
I'm talking the speaking. You're doing obviously a lot more, but TopRank has this amazing ability to go in and capture an event with this combination of live tweeting. You have all of these deals, sponsorship deals, where you do the interviews beforehand and the materials. So I mean that kind of event focus is something you guys really excel at.
Yep.
So how did that
How did
happen?
that come about?
Yeah.
So, writing a blog, when we started writing a blog, it was an experiment, of course, in 2003, and it started to become a little bit popular as I found my voice, because I wasn't a particularly good writer, but hey, people were starting to contact us and say, hey, we'd like to hire you. What? What sales cycle? And of course that extended to other promotion channels like social. And one of the things that I did was I reached out to Search Engine Strategies Conference and asked them, look, you've got these other major publications sponsoring. How about a blog sponsoring you? And here's what I'll do. I'll write some blog posts to promote your conference if you'll give me free passes for people to attend and live blog during the conference. So SES said yes, SMX said yes, PubCon said yes, and 3 or 4, I was sending people all over the country when only having to pay travel. And so this created a momentum of content because, of course, and there's so much more to this, I don't want to spend all the time, but there was an interesting thing is that we would look for people that we wanted to do business with. I didn't just live blog sessions of just anybody. I'd find out who was speaking that worked for brands that I wanted to work with, knowing that if I could give them exposure before they ever met me, they would be familiar with me in a positive way. And should their pursuit of information on the things that our company did would intersect, right? And they'd see our blog, and they'd see me speak at another event myself or something else. They're, oh yeah, I've heard of those people. They're good at that thing. And then they would want to do business with us. So that's kind of how that started to happen. And of course, as we added to our team, we'd share some of these best practices. And now we've got some amazing folks that when we go to an event, not only do we do this for ourselves, but obviously customers, companies, MarTech companies in the marketing software space, they hire us to create content around events. And that intersects with influence and SEO and social and all kinds of fun things.
I would imagine the recap of this is already posted, right? Greg, what are you doing? What did you move into that you hadn't necessarily predicted? What are you doing now that maybe you would have looked back at from your 2008 self and said, I can't believe you're doing that?
So companies have always had a hard time prioritizing social media, right? And the reason is it's often set to the wrong objective. And we think of social media as channels instead of people. We see algorithms as an enemy. And we're thinking monetization all the time in short term versus long term. So what happens is brands can't invest in every single big next thing. And as we brought up, like a brand jumping into Plurk and Jaiku and that costs money. That's real money. If it's just me, like it costs nothing. It's my own time. It costs nothing. I think that we underestimated the power of brands being late. However, of brands getting brand jacked when they weren't on a platform. I registered back before companies were allowed to be on Facebook. There were fan pages, and you could create a fan page of something you were genuinely interested in. So I created a fan page for Rocky Rococo's Pizza because I like it. And it grew to almost 3,000 fans, which was huge at the time. And then I reached out to someone at Rocky Rococo's, and I was like, when business pages launched, I was like, I would like to give this to you. And they're like, Facebook? Someone has our brand on Facebook? And had it shut down. In 2009, it was Groundhog Day, and I went to Twitter to see what Punxsutawney Phil was going to say. And he wasn't on Twitter. So I registered him on Twitter. And then I tweeted, I saw my shadow. And then I did that for 5 years. And I got on Good Morning America and the Weather Channel, and I did an interview with Mashable as the Groundhog, and the headline is, Groundhog Phil says WTF to Groundhog Day. And then I reached out to the Groundhog Club in Punxsutawney, and I said, I would like to give you this. And they had it shut down. I delivered pizzas on the weekends right after we had my son, and I was tweeting as @PizzaPizza as a delivery driver, and live tweeted every one of my tweets and weird things that happened. And City Pages wrote this whole story like, watch out, because you don't know what's going to happen. And Little Caesars took my Twitter channel. And so now, like at work, to answer your question, we're thinking ahead, right? So Evan Spiegel at Snapchat would say, brands can be friendly, but they're not your friends. We don't want brands having accounts on Twitter or on Snapchat. We don't want them broadcasting. They should use it like TV and buy ads. That's fine, but if you haven't registered your brand on Snapchat, I'll go do it. Right? So you have to think ahead a little bit. Part of my role at Fallon is thinking of the whole 360 of what's that next thing, and then bringing context for clients matched against an objective so that you know where to place it. You know why you should put resources against it or you shouldn't. And that really is the ongoing challenge that we have in social media marketing, is figuring out, is proving our value against an objective that is measurable, even if it's long-term, even if it's reputation or community-based. Because these tools do have deep insights and amazing ability to monetize, but you have to have those objectives set first.
Can I put a spin on your take before you even answer?
Because we're mind melding.
I wanted to. I'm trying to be sensitive of time, but I also wanted to address the elephant in the room, which is that we have an author of a social media etiquette book sitting on this panel. This seems very far from people's mind nowadays. So, do you want to answer this through the lens of when exactly people stopped caring about social media etiquette?
Well, I mostly wrote that for two reasons. First of all, I wrote in response to many clients of mine saying, like, tell me exactly what to do so I don't make a fool of myself. Like, what are the rules? I want to follow the rules, and I don't want to do something stupid. And that's pretty much indicative of every client I've ever worked with. And so I thought, I will put down some basic practices and some rules that would be important to people that are using social media, particularly from a business perspective. Personally, this was a response to, let's say, 2012 or 13, the fact that I found social media to be getting really, really ugly. And this was before the presidential election. So it's gotten much uglier. And I just felt like if I'm going to do something, like this is something that I feel strongly about, and the people who need it aren't going to read it, but at least it's my line in the sand to say, I think we should behave better. And it was a response to two trends that I was seeing. The first of which was the trend of telling people to go kill themselves. Instead of saying, I don't agree with you, go kill yourself. Why don't you go die? You should go kill yourself. And the second, which I'm sure my fellow panelists have not experienced, was people telling me I should be raped. And that happened a number of times on social media. If you're tweeting stuff that's personal stuff or jokes or whatever, I mean, if you're just tweeting like 5 tips for Facebook goodness, you're not going to tell people aren't going to tell you that you should be raped. But if you're just talking and communicating with people, that sort of thing's going to happen. And so at that point I thought, like, this is not cool. It's not fun to be here. Like, that's not a fun place to be. Like, if I was in a boardroom and somebody said that to me, I'd leave the boardroom. So if I'm going to hang out here, what can I do to make this place feel a little bit better? So like I said, the people who are like rapey aren't going to read my book, and that's cool. But at least it was my attempt to say, this is how I think it would be better if we behaved online. So.
And there's still good stuff in there. I still have slides that bullet point some of your sections. So thank you for that, for making that a little better. This also reminds me of what we were talking about before this talk about. We're looking at 2008, we're looking at politics and what was happening then and what is happening now, and we were thinking, wouldn't it be great if the president tweeted? What would that be like? What if Obama tweeted? We were talking on the phone, we're like, that was such a big deal when Obama had his Blueberry, or his It's in this cup, oh my gosh. When Obama had his BlackBerry, and I remember when they released the first White House photo that was all digital, and the press immediately latched onto the EXIF data, and the White House went, what, you can read all that? And we were like, yeah, it's in the file. So now we know what it's like when a president tweets. And it's a whole different ballgame now for social. Do we want to jump ahead and just talk a little bit about what we're seeing now and what, as marketers and professionals in the space, we might be able to do to help right the ship?
I think, there's an expression, money makes you more of what you already are. The same thing with social media. Social media makes you more right, of what you already are. And I think a lot of times folks will say it's because of social media that these bad or great things are happening. And really, it's about the people behind. And the social media, social channels, social networks are the connections that allow the messages to propagate and sometimes be co-created and that sort of thing. And I think when you look at the political environment, you know, be careful what you wish for, right? And I think those voices that of reason and or you know, how else can I characterize? You know, need to be strong, right? And it provides an environment where people can communicate what they're thinking, whether we agree with it or not, right? And it's especially important now because of the minority of people with very, very loud voices that others who also use social channels to communicate, you know, their point of view, because that absence of voice is not helping anybody. So what do we do about it? You know, use your voice, right?
Right.
I'll speak shortly, and then Jen, if you're comfortable, I'd love to ask you a question about it, because as the female, the woman on the panel, I have no right to talk about the Me Too movement, and I acknowledge that. I will say that every single tweet is stored in the Library of Congress. So I just shared a bunch of examples that are games, right? Tweet is a groundhog. But the attacks that you were talking about, that's not a game. And I know I personally haven't been good about calling out other people and standing up for the women in my life, and I want to commit to that. And Jen, I would love if you have other thoughts about what's going on, if you're comfortable.
Yeah, I thought, and a couple of people in my network echoed that was probably one of the most positive uses of social media that they'd seen in a while, and really illuminating for a lot of people that there were people in my network, every woman in my network that I admire was a Me Too. And for some reason that surprised me, it shouldn't have. So I'd like to see more of that, because that was one of those moments where I was like, this could only happen on social. And it's so powerful because it did. And so like Lee's saying, I like to see amplifying some voices for change, and not just change, everybody gotta change. There's a lot of crisis fatigue where everybody's like, everything's falling apart. But that people are doing things to change things, and I think certainly that was a really great first step, and I think I have not been inspired on social media in that way for quite some time. So I found it really inspiring.
Excellent. Well, maybe not on that note, but on a similar stopping point here, I would like to open it up to general questions, because it is not often that this powerhouse of expertise and opinion and truthfulness are on one stage. So we have a mic on this side, we have a mic on that side. Raise your hands high.
And we will also ask you, when you ask your question, if you could stand up so that we can get your voice captured and speak into the mic.
Sing your question, please.
In wartime, until recently, I was with Medtronic, and the work that I ended up doing towards the last part of my tenure was governance and compliance. And I go back, you talked about the Army and so forth. I was actually part of the policy written for the employees on social media, right? And that was picked from a number of policies that we would get our hands on already. We didn't start from scratch on something like that. And then, later on, late followers, putting together a compliance program and working with the security office on things that were happening, and people that were shadowing or snarking up Omar's Twitter feed and so forth. Very, very interesting and very good learning experience. But from your perspective, what has changed in that neighborhood for corporations and their employees, and going after trolls or not going after trolls? I mean, that has ramped up, the curve as well, and would love to have your perspective on that.
I remember being at South by Southwest in March of 2007, and sitting in the back, and hashtags weren't a thing yet, but there were people sitting on stage talking, and we were communicating as this digital back channel. And I wrote a blog post about it that crashed my server because it was getting linked to so much about this thing, and what is this thing? And we came back, and Jen, you said you were there, and you're like, they're not organized, and they're not planning for it, and they weren't. And companies often weren't planning for it too, but I remember sitting in this session with Frank Eliason at Comcast, and he's just like, Comcast cares, and we were so excited. We were just like, yes, you understand that people have opinions and have issues that they're sharing in social, and you built a program to respond to them. 12th Force at Best Buy, right? And like, damn it, because it just taught all of us to bitch on the internet. Right? Like, I honestly think it's a precursor to where we're at with politics right now. Like, it enabled people, like, oh, it'd be way faster than calling and waiting on hold to bitch at Comcast if I just publicly tell everyone I'm pissed at Comcast. On the flip side, Ward, I think I've written now 3 agency personal guidelines governance for how you act in social. I've written a number of them for brands, and I think that yes, we all did a save as on a couple. I think UPS had a really good one, and so we just kept doing save as and rewriting them, and there's this tricky balance, and again, it comes down to your employer allowing you to have social media at work. Of like, our Target, I think, did a great job of saying you can have access, and because you are an advocate for us, and like we want you to be a Target employee out there. Unfortunately, sometimes those employees aren't great people, and so you have to have governance. You have to have a carrot and a stick.
That's something I've seen. You mentioned advocacy as an extension of the social media guidelines for a brand, in that you see this pretty substantial growth in employee advocacy initiatives trying to encourage employees to become more active on social networks on behalf of the brand to the extent that it's relevant. And so there's all these platforms out there, and we do a lot of work with LinkedIn Elevate as an example. And
Dynamic Signal.
yeah, exactly, yeah. And it's really taking off, and so that adds a whole nother perspective from a governance and monitoring standpoint, because you're literally trying to ignite, what's already happening, hopefully, at scale, right? And that could only invite, when you increase the volume of a thing, it's just inevitable that you're going to increase the volume of the things you don't want happening as well. And I think companies that are overly optimistic about employee advocacy, or super optimistic, needs also to pay attention to that governance component as well.
Yeah, hi, Steve Slater, and my question is mainly maybe for Jen, but if you guys want to weigh in too, that'd be great. To go back to the Me Too, one concern I have just in general, and maybe not about Me Too, but is Twitter, for example, specifically, is under the hot light, right? The whole question of, is it okay to punch Nazis, right? And in the meantime, they won't kick a Nazi off for calling for ethnic cleansing, but if you tweet a picture of Richard Spencer getting punched, you can be suspended because you're glorifying violence. So my question is really around, how do you feel, or what do you see coming when social media platforms kind of control that discourse in the name of civility, and how could that have a negative impact on us as a whole?
Well, I think when Mykl was talking about things you could have never imagined back in the day, that a foreign country could think that we potentially declared nuclear war via Twitter from our president is something I would have never picked. So I think when we get into situations like that, I think that makes the people at Twitter go, okay, now we should have a meeting or something, because I think, the Gamergate stuff, there's some bad stuff that has gone down on social that they've been like, yeah, we should totally have a meeting about that. But I think nuclear war is one of those, we're gonna, maybe some policies or something, because I think it's more real now. I think before it was like, oh yeah, that's a shame that people are getting, bullied on the internet, but free speech and whatever. But I think the stakes are much, much higher now. And I think that a number of those social networks are realizing that they have an enormous amount of power, and with great power comes great responsibility, and that they're responsible for allowing people to attack people and to threaten people and to do things that have led to violence. And what role do they play in that? And that onus is on them. And I think it's great for those of us out here to be like, the onus is on you dudes, so have a meeting or something, and to continue to push on them, because that is something they should be taking more seriously, I think.
I think the foreign interference through social to effect is obviously an issue. We see evidence of that being covered in the reputable news media. And also, I think, I may be wrong, but I think Twitter and Facebook just stopped Russia Today and another of their sister publications. They cannot advertise on those platforms anymore because of the propaganda or whatever. And so I think from an organic perspective, there's something to that as well. I don't know technically how they can source where those accounts are being set up or whatever, but there's something to that, right? Because that's something that happened at scale that did have an impact that we need to be aware of and do something about.
We are a community. Like, we have a responsibility to stand up and attack things that are bad and praise things that are good. And Zuckerberg is woefully unaware of what he has built and what has happened. Also, there was a fantastic South Park 2 weeks ago where Zuckerberg came to town and was eating everyone's groceries and wouldn't leave, and they complained to the police, and the police were like, raise your hand if you invited Mark Zuckerberg into your life. And everyone was like, I did. So we did. We invited him in. So we have a responsibility to call bullshit on this stuff. If you haven't already flagged Donald Trump's tweets as being abusive, go do it. There'd be another 200 today, right? And that's the minimum of what we should be doing.
That's excellent. I want to really quickly, we're not going to have any more time for questions, I'm sorry. But they're on Twitter. They really love to hear from on Twitter. I want to super quickly just hear briefly from each of you about what you're looking forward to. What's something that you're actually optimistic and excited about to keep an eye on? Jen, do you want to start?
Well, I think for a long time, there was a lot of discussion in every digital meeting that I was in about the killer app and who's going to invent the killer app. And I maintain to this day that the killer app is giving a damn about other people. My entire business is built on basically cleaning up other people's social media messes and coming in and saying, what do they want? What do they need? Stop talking about yourself. Think about other people. And if you approach social media with that perspective, you will always come out on top, because companies will always default to their own personal needs and their own personal gain. And they're never going to be the person to say, if somebody's pen broke, we should walk in and give them a pen. They're never going to be a person in the room that's going to be like, that's totally what we should do. You're going to be that person. And the person who comes up with those ideas is always going to be in a great spot, because you're going to be able to create transformative experiences. Because that's where it comes from. It comes from the heart, I believe. And that's total chick speak or whatever. But I think that that's really been the difference in my career in this field, is the ability to come in and spin that and to find that angle. And I keep thinking, 10 years of this, that somebody's going to be like, duh, we totally got that covered. Nope, I still walk into every meeting and they're like, oh, what they need, yeah, we should have a meeting about that. Every single time. So you're always going to have a niche for yourself, and there's always going to be an exciting angle to work if you care about other people, because that's what it's about.
Cool. Well, working in marketing and the sheer volume of an increase in data that we have to deal with, especially on the social side of things, I'm really interested and excited about the role that cognitive solutions, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and all that stuff will play in connecting all this dark data, all this unstructured data, as well as structured data that we have, to start to surface things that can be more effective in terms of recommendations for clients and for ourselves. One of the things that's happening abroad is the GDPR, which is a General Data Protection, and I forget what the R stands for, but it basically means you have to get permission from someone to even look at their damn tweets, let alone, right? I mean, you have to get permission. I can't even tell if someone's an influencer unless I get their permission to look at their data first. Whoa, this is crazy. And so AI is going to play, I think, if that comes across the pond, that perspective on privacy. I think anonymized data is going to be more and more and more important, and AI can help make sense predictively of what it is that is important to your audiences, and then can inform how you communicate as a brand to those audiences in a more meaningful way. So I'm particularly interested in that, and I'm also extremely interested in the whole democratization of marketing. I have this attitude that everyone's influential about something. Everybody in here is influential, and you have the power to publish on any channel you want to. And I think tapping into that and the collaboration that brands are starting to do more and more with their customers, with the very marketing content that will then be used to market to those customers, is something that on social channels I'm very, very excited about.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, those were fantastic. Building on those, so I'm the guy that's always excited about the next big thing. Always, right? I pay really close attention to patents, art, and culture. How many of you bought the new iPhone last night? Yes. I know I'm tired too. I'm really tired. The new iPhone has a little notch right here, and like it unlocks with your face, right? Facebook has a patent that you can smile and it'll like content, or it will watch your face and it will change the content based on your mood. They have a patent. It's not rolled out yet, but like now that you know that's coming, let's start being excited about it and thinking of what we could do with it. And also, let's be really diligent to be sure it's not abused. But I think Jen had a great point. Like, especially if you work in marketing, social media marketing, with brands, with companies, you can help set how you're going to use those things. But social media fatigue is real, so take care of yourself. I spend 1 week a year with my phone unplugged in a safe, right? Then I'm on the rest of the year, but I know that week is there, and it matters, because this change is constant, isn't it? It's constant. There's always a new thing. Look at what you just told us happened while we were sitting in this room, right? There's always a new thing. I believe that if you're in marketing communications, if you're a student of communication arts, you're responsible for being up on that next thing and being excited about it, and then steering that in that direction. So to quote my favorite rich white male, because that's the best thing to do to end in Bill Gates said, we always overestimate the change that's coming in the next 2 years, and we underestimate the change that's coming in the next 10. So think about that. I believe if we're not living in the center of change, we've already been left behind.
Ooh, that's a good quote.
That is a great quote. Please give our panel a warm I would ask for your indulgence for one more moment. This has been an honor to moderate this panel. I wonder if I could get a quick selfie with you guys. Just stay where you are. So I'm gonna be right here. There we are. There we go. And then with all of you.
One more.
Yeah, we're gonna do one with the crowd.
So turn around, guys.
So if everybody, there we go,
You need to get it.
would kind of wave.
We're doing like the Ellen thing.
Yeah.
Not as
1, 2, 3. There we go. Thank you all for coming. Please grab your Cocoa card on the way out the door. We have a volunteer next to Bacon. Bacon is going to be hanging around for photos. See you guys next month.
Are you down?
Just about. I got his stop.